Okay, so I wanted to do a video on this one. Let's go.
People with Klinefelter syndrome are not considered to be intersex. So when somebody is intersex, they're either XX or XY, but they have genitals that can be...
Really? You thought that people were XX or XY if they're intersex? Why would you think that? What is wrong with you? Why would you think people are XX or XY, but you find a condition where someone's XXY, and then you don't realize that people can have a differentiation of chromosomes other than XX or XY. You literally just mentioned a condition that was not XX or XY. You thought that that was the only one? What is wrong with you? Seriously, you could have easily looked it up and found that there's many other different combinations where someone could end up with both XX and a Y chromosome, or XX plus XY. For example, you could have a condition like chimerism, right? And you could have two embryos basically fused together, and their chromosomal setup will be XX and XY. It varies from person to person. Some people are mostly XX, and then they might have like 10% XY. Other people are 50-50, split in the middle. Other people are like, a higher percentage. And then, the phenotype can range. It's not even specific to how much XY you have or XX you have sometimes. Sometimes you can have more XY and still have a phenotype that's mostly female. It all depends on different body parts as well. So, I mean, you thought that there were only a few conditions? Like, you could do your research a little bit better than what you're doing, honestly. But you're not doing your research properly, it doesn't seem. Also, on Klinefelter syndrome, you mean to say really is this: many people with Klinefelter syndrome call themselves men with Klinefelter syndrome. What's going on in those situations is this: most people with Klinefelter syndrome identify as men. And so because they identify as men, they take testosterone to look like men. And then they call themselves men. They didn't go through a regular male puberty, though. And they aren't biologically male by chromosomes. Many of the time, before they take testosterone, people will not see them as male. They'll see them as female when looking at them, basically, because they went through a puberty that was more feminine. Many of the time, they have to go get surgery, top surgery, to get rid of their breasts, basically, because basically they don't have a male puberty. They grow breasts instead, So with these type of people, if they identify as men, they're going to call themselves men with Klinefelter syndrome, basically. And the thing is, because it's not caught when they're children, when they're babies, it's only caught when they're going through puberty, many people will take it at that. But the thing is, what's it any different? How is it any different than someone who has transitioned in their life? Someone who is a trans man, for example. A trans man is born female, right? They take testosterone. And they basically, will get like a top surgery and things of that nature to basically, look like a man, right? Or try, at least. Many of them live supposedly in stealth. That's what they claim. And many of them would rather identify as men rather than trans men. So, what's the difference with people with Klinefelter syndrome taking testosterone and getting top surgery to look like a man, or someone who is a woman, or a biological female, a biological female getting surgery and, hormones to look like a man and identifies as man? It's the same thing. Both people were not born with the capabilities of being the male sex. Both were not the male sex. They weren't chromosomally. They don't grow up and mature into adulthood looking like anyone who is a mature, grown male adult, a man. Neither group grow up into that. They have to take testosterone and they have to get top surgery. So that kind of tells you that no, neither types of individuals are actually men. What they are is people who were born both. Yes, they are intersex. People with Klinefelter syndrome are intersex. Obviously, I'm not saying trans men. Trans men were born female. My example is just to show you that they are both people who are not born of the male sex, who basically transition to make their bodies look like they are of the male sex, basically. But they're not of the male sex. Continue.
Associated with both genders. That's the problem. Somebody who has XXY, however, is a male with Klinefelter syndrome. Still a male and has a penis. This man is not going to have any kind of external female genitalia.
That's not true either. See, you thought one category. See, that's the male presenting part of XXY syndrome. There's a continuum. I saw in another video you talk about Swyer syndrome, but for some reason you left out the whole situation with people who have XXY chromosomes, but they have no SRY gene on their XXY chromosome. Those people are fully female looking. They do not have male genitalia. They birth their own children, their own biological children. They go through a female puberty. I don't really know what else to tell you. They're literally, the same as XX females. So someone who is XXY could be anything within that range. Someone who was mostly male in presentation, but they still need to take top surgery and take hormones. The other extreme to it actually doesn't even need to take any hormones for that matter. They don't take estrogen. They don't get breast implants. They get all that naturally in their bodies. You would actually think XXY would actually lean more towards the female side if you look at the whole continuum. Continue, though.
Of any sort. And it's actually a result of hypogonadism, which is caused by a lack of testosterone. So this is from a study that I found on the issue, and it says XXYs are not intersexed, defined as a condition where the phenotype expression, the physical appearance, so the genitalia, of primary sexual characteristics is at variance with one's genetic sex, but old myths and misunderstandings live on. So most scientists actually discount XXY from being intersex.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say. You're only thinking of it through one lens. You're thinking of it through one lens of basically... One, I kind of feel like it's weird because it's like, well, you're just thinking of one characteristic. The whole puberty is not even male. So their puberty is female. So even, like I said, on the male side of things... their puberty is still, female. It's not male. So, you saying that they're born with male genitalia, that's the masculine side of it. But on the feminine side of it, where someone's SRY gene is not active, they basically are the same as someone who is XX, female. So to me, it's like it's a whole large continuum where XXY karyotype. The phenotype could be any of those. People just have one stereotype of what it's going to be because I think that's one that's very controversial, I think, and also I think a lot of people do not really want to think of the complexity of it, even in those situations where someone is mostly, male. So that's all I had to say there. I just think, you need to actually look up the conditions instead of making up stuff and just going along with it to fit your narrative. I mean, I think you're just really uncomfortable with the idea of actual intersex people existing, because if you look at it how you were trying to say that everyone was born with XX or XY when that's totally not true. I mean, I just gave you two different situations where that's not the case. One with XXY chromosomes, you can have an SRY gene that doesn't work, and you can have an SRY gene that is dysfunctional, or maybe not completely dysfunctional, where it leaves you somewhere in the middle. You knew about Swyer syndrome, but you wanted to actually pretend that didn't exist in the case of somebody who had XXY chromosomes and karyotype, because it didn't fit your narrative. Because if you actually looked it up about the SRY gene, if someone doesn't have an SRY gene and they're XXY, they're gonna turn out basically just female. So, I mean, I think it's either you're just being purposefully mendacious, or maybe you're actually just ignorant and you thought you would come up and basically read a few stories on a few intersex conditions and then make your conclusions from that. But doing that is a sloppy way of doing your research, and therefore you're going to come up looking like you don't have much information on it and you don't really know what you're talking about. So that's all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching, and bye, guys.